So all of us small businesses that drive half of the employment in the country, that drive most of the economic drive of the country, we have no voice in the government. Should there be an end to lobbying altogether? Or should us entrepreneurs stand up and have a much louder, so if you can't beat them, join them? Or if you can't beat them, keep fighting until you do. Too many times as entrepreneurs ignore what's happening in the political world because we don't want to get dragged down into the mess. But more today than ever before, we need to have a voice. Otherwise, we're going to be left behind. I started Lurn exactly for this reason. So starting today with Freedom Friday, let me be your voice. What's up, you crazy fighting entrepreneurs? Welcome back to another episode of Freedom Friday. This is your favorite person in the whole wide world, Anik Singal, and I'm coming to you today with a really interesting topic. We're going to talk about lobbying. All right, we're going to talk about what goes on in the underbelly of our government and what my take on it is and whether entrepreneurs should be involved or we should just stop lobbying altogether. We'll talk about it together, and I'd love to hear your thoughts or feedback. Listen, come on, go over to the YouTube channel, find this video, and leave us a comment. All right, if you're watching on YouTube, leave me a comment below. I read them all. I want to see what you think. But before we can start, come on, entrepreneurs. Are you a part of Lurn Nation? LURN.com. Get in there. Are you going to sit by and watch this movement move right past you, or are you going to join us? We're going to put 10 million entrepreneurs into this community. We're going to come together worldwide, and we're going to change the world. Why? Because our governments aren't going to do it. We are the last line of defense here. So what I want to do, my dream is to build a community where we support one another through this platform, Lurn.com, LURN.com. We help each other go out there and create massive change. So go in there. There's tons of free courses. There's some paid courses. There's $2 courses. There's $1,000 courses, whatever fits what you need right now. And pretty soon we're going to be adding some amazing features that allows you to connect with each other, talk to each other, ask questions, get answers. It's going to be so powerful. So let's do it. Go to LURN.com. Join us at Lurn. All right, now let's talk about how lobbying works in the United States government, and should entrepreneurs have a lobby? All right, so lobbying. What is lobbying? You know, I got to be honest with you. I'm not a huge fan of lobbying. I find it to be basically legalized corruption. And hear me out on this, all right? Now, before I even continue, by the way, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't start here. I know we were going to do an episode this week about the economic hitman, but I just did not feel that to be appropriate given that it was 9/11. It was the week of 9/11. And so I do, before I talk about lobbying, I want to take a minute here in total unity, because I know sometimes I can go, trash talk our government and this and that, but in the end, I am a true patriot. I love this country. And I want to tell my story about where I was on 9/11, because it really was 9/11. Unfortunately, it's what it took for me to realize just how much I love this country and how much of a patriot I am. So on 9/11, I was actually sick as a dog at home. I was a series of surgeries. I had dropped out of that college semester, and I was upstairs sleeping. And I was really sick. My mom came running up and she said, "Wake up, something's happening." And I ran downstairs to the television, and I got down just in time to see the second plane hit. And it's an image that is literally sheared into my mind. I'll never forget it. And the straight horror, the pain, the sadness, it was just immense. And so I want to take a moment to just remember anyone and everyone that was injured, that lost their life, whether it was in the exact accidents that took place or in the actual attacks, or in serving those who were attacked in the subsequent days to come, or to any of our men and women of the military who lost their lives in the years coming after that in the war. So I just want to take a moment of silence really to remember them and to thank them from the heart for what they did, what they gave, and what they had to sacrifice, them and their whole families. All right, so now that I've said that, I want everyone to understand something. As I do Freedom Fridays, I know I can go against the government a lot, and I get pretty heated. Last couple weeks we've talked about giving and how I really feel like giving has, I don't know, it's creating more problems than it is. But I want everyone to understand one thing, and that is I love this country. It's why I do this. I love the world. I love everything, and I just think that there are better ways that we can run together as a unit. And so my message really here through Freedom Friday for entrepreneurs is just to think outside the box, right? And that's what I bring. So today when we talk about lobbying, I know I use strong words like I think it's legalized corruption. I think why lobbying was created is great. I think it had a great core cause. But I think that's gotten a little out of hand, and that it's become a very profitable business that's controlling decisions made by our government, it's a bit of a trap that I feel that even our public servants who are being controlled by it, they've fallen into a trap. They can't get out of it. And so it's not necessarily representing us as a people. And I'll tell you right now, I've got mathematical proof that's really not representing entrepreneurs at all. Like, guys, we have nil to no representation. And so all of us small businesses that drive half of the employment in the country, that drive most of the economic drive of the country, we have no voice in the government. And I want to prove that to you today. And I want to pose a question that I really want you to answer. I don't have an answer to it yet. I think the more and more I connect with you entrepreneurs, we'll come up with an answer together. And that is, should there be an end to lobbying altogether? Or should us entrepreneurs stand up and have a much louder? So if you can't beat them, join them. Or if you can't beat them, keep fighting until you do. I don't know. Let's figure that out. So what is lobbying? How does it work? Lobbying is the same thing as special interest groups. So let's look at the wheat industry. I got a personal gripe with the wheat industry because I'm allergic to gluten. And I find gluten in freaking everything. Why does there need to be gluten in soy sauce? Well, they use it to thicken. There's other things to use. Well, it's because wheat is cheap. It's stupid cheap. Why? Because the lobbying group behind wheat is strong. It's strong. They're out there making sure the subsidies, the government money is flowing. The research, the genetic manipulation of wheat is flowing because it's more profitable for the wheat companies. So they have a very powerful lobbying group. They put millions of dollars in lobbying groups. Those lobbying groups are sitting in DC, are meeting with our officials and they're driving a lot of results from those officials. And I'll get into why. Why does a government official, why does a congressman or woman, why do they listen to lobbyist groups? We'll talk about that. That's the trap. That's the thing that I think they can't get out of. Now, it's not just wheat industry. It's the energy industry. It's milk. Milk has a lobbying industry. Sugar has a lobbying industry. I mean, my gosh, every type of thing you can think about has a lobbying industry, right? And it's because they want to have a voice in the government. And so that's why I say lobbying was created, I think, at the core with a good purpose. But now it's really started to take over, and it's kind of turned a little malicious in some ways, where it's not really representing us, the people, as it should. So basically the way lobbying works is there's a group of people, they're usually attorneys, and there's lobbying groups, there's lobbying companies, and they're filled with attorneys and specialists and, people with a lot of access. And they go out and they have meetings and they have dinners and they have lunches and they get a lot of FaceTime access to politicians. And they're able to voice themselves to politicians. You and I cannot, but they can. How? Well, typically there's a lot of money playing. Well, what does that money look like? There's campaign funding. So what is the trap that our politicians fall into, even when they want to do a lot of good? I believe a lot of our political leaders want to do good, but they fall into a trap. And that is, they need money to win. If you're not sitting in office, you can't do any good, right? So you need money to win. To get money, you got to go after these special interest groups. You got to convince them to help pay towards your race, towards your political campaign. But now, listen, it's just human nature. Okay, even in our foundation, at the lowest levels, in our foundation, I have a foundation called Singal Foundation, singal.org. Now, if someone comes in tomorrow and donates $100,000 to the foundation, am I not going to be grateful? Of course I will be grateful. Will I not maybe give them a phone call to say, hey, Jack, thanks for the $100,000? Of course I will. And then if 3 weeks later, 2 weeks later, 2 months later, 3 months later, Jack says, Anik, could I just have a minute of your time? I have something I want to talk to you about. Well, I feel indebted. There's a law of reciprocity. I feel like I got to give Jack that time. So I would do it. So even at the smallest levels, we work like this with friends. Maybe we have a friend we've been friends with for years and they've done so much for us. They helped us move. They've lent us money. They've been emotional support. And that one day comes when they call you and say, I need something. Don't you feel the law of reciprocity? Don't you feel the need to say yes? This is what's happening in the lobbying world because these special interest groups have so much money that they're funded by these big industries, right? The wheat industry, the milk industry, the energy industry. I mean, you name it. They have money and they contribute to all of these campaigns and they're essentially buying influence. But it's human nature. If you do something for me, I will do something for you. If I don't do something for you, next time around, you will fund my competition. And my competition will have all the campaign money. They will win and then I will lose and then I can't do any good anyways. So a lot of political leaders are in this place of they make a deal with the devil. Like, okay, I got to do these 3 bad things so I can get the one good thing that I want to get done. So we're always like, one step forward, 3 back, one step forward, 3 back, I feel. But at least they're trying, but they got to stay in office to do it. So how do we make it so that these lobbyists innately lose the selfish interest but start to truly represent humans, like the citizens of the country? So I have some ideas I want to throw out there that I think could do this. But in essence, a lobbying group is supposed to go lobby for an industry. They're supposed to go talk to political leaders and try to get things passed their way. So we'll talk about how I believe it turns into corruption. Let's do that now. Okay. So let's say you were a senator for, 12 years, maybe more. And you were head of the defense committee. I mean, you were up there, right? And so you know everybody. You've been around. You're a senior in the Congress. You've been around the block. You know all the players. You were head of the committee, the defense committee. You knew all the players there. When you leave, most of the defense committee still stays there. They still know you. Still know them. They still owe you. You owe them. Like, you still have that camaraderie. Maybe you did them a couple of favors. Now you might leave the Senate, retire, and go off into the private industry. But they are still there, and you still have their cell phone numbers. You still can reach them. You can still contact them. So what happens when you retire from the Senate, you go off, and all of a sudden a big power company, energy company comes along and says, hey, Senator Ralph, whatever, we'd love to put you on our board of advisors. We just think you have so much knowledge from your time in the energy committee or in the defense committee or the whatever committee they ran. We'd like to put you in our board of advisors. And by the way, our board of advisors, we love and value your input so much, we pay $500,000 a year just to be on our board of advisors. It's 3 meetings a year, 4 meetings a year virtually. You don't even have to travel. Or if you do travel, we pay you first class, we fly you out private, get you a great, beautiful hotel, and we just want to pick your brain when you're here. And guess what happens? When you're there to pick their brain, they say, hey, by the way, Senator Ralph, this is so interesting. We just put in a bid to win the power plant or to win that defense contract. And we understand it's the defense committee that you were the head of just until last year that's actually going to choose who wins. Geez, nudge, nudge, shoulder, shoulder. We were hoping maybe you could put in a couple of phone calls for us. What do you think, Senator? Senator Ralph is on the payroll, $500,000 a year, being board of advisors. He's board of advisors of this company. He feels like he believes in the company. He feels he should support them. So he says, oh, sure, I'll call my buddy who's the current head of the committee and see if I can't pull a couple little favors for you guys. Calls him down and says, so he calls Senator Jacob. Hey, Senator Jacob, remember me? Senator Ralph. Hey, how are you, buddy? I remember those 3 times I pulled you out of a major jam? Remember when I helped you? Remember when I voted in your favor for that one thing you really wanted? Oh, yeah. Well, what can I do for you? Well, it's time. I'd really like to see this company win that particular proposal there, that bid. So this company might win like a $2 billion proposal or a bid, and they're paying out a few $100,000, a few $1 million a year. Do you start to see how this works? So a lot of our political leaders eventually go on to become lobbyists or to become board of advisor members of big companies because they still have their influence and they can call back and pull a lot of favors, get a lot of things done. And those board of advisors seem to really churn every few years, right? Because as a senator left, their influence over their past peers starts to diminish by every year because new people come. They don't know those people. They don't have as much influence over those people. So that company says, thank you for serving for the last 3, 4, 5 years on our board. We're going to find some new members now to get some new blood in and some new thoughts and inputs. And some go even directly join lobbyist groups. A lot of political leaders are lawyers already. They go join a lobbyist group. And so it's a game of influence. It's a game of purchasing influence. So lobbyist groups will go to these. So now the other way that this works is, so there's that, right? This is how a lot of the really big companies are winning contracts, winning bids, and doing things using lobbying in a really bad way. Then there's the other way lobbyists. Lobbyists walk up to political leaders and say, hey, we see you got a campaign coming up. We'd love to put some money in, but we'd love to know what your thoughts are on, agriculture. And we have a client. They'd love to put some money in, but they want to know that you're on their side. They want to know where you stand on these positions. And so this politician sitting there going, oh, man, I need that $1 million. I need that $500,000. I need campaign money. I'm going to lose this race. But I know that if I take this money, then I'm going to have to vote in their favor. And if I don't vote in their favor, I'm going to get screwed over the next time. So I better be ready to come on board and vote in their favor. Sometimes they're going to vote in their favor, and they might even vote against their party. And everyone's sitting around saying, why the heck did he vote? What? Why did he or she vote for that? Well, go back and check campaign contributions. So this is a bit of a problem. So let's talk about, if we decide that, if you feel that lobbying should be completely eliminated, I have a solution that I feel would bring lobbying back to its core purpose that it began for, which was true advocacy for the citizens of this great country. There are 3 things I think if we did would immediately impact and would nullify the deceitful way lobbying is used. Number 1, and I'm not saying this should be done because each one has its positives and negatives. I'm just kind of introducing an idea, a conversation. Number 1, private voting records. See, right now, we know exactly how our politicians vote. Our representatives and our senators, where their stand was, what they voted, yay, nay, on every bill. So that makes them accountable not just to their constituents, but unfortunately also to the lobbyist groups. So if they had raised a bunch of money from a lobbyist group but don't really believe in what the lobbyist group is pushing, then if they vote against that, it's public, it's known, and they risk losing money on their next campaign, which hence ends up controlling their voting. Well, what if all voting records were private? So the constituents would, of course, lose the oversight. That's one of the biggest downsides. But then the lobbyists, well, they would stop trying to buy politicians because they could never trust if the politician would actually vote in their favor or not. So you could turn the game against them. I don't know. It's a thought process. Now, of course, we as constituents wouldn't really know which way they voted. We'd have to kind of just trust them. All right? Okay, number 2. Limited terms for Congress. Right now, there are none, I don't believe. I know that President Trump introduced this idea, but I mean, here's the thing. If you're a senator for 12, 15, 20, 25, I don't know how many years. There's people in Congress, people that are in the representatives that have been there for freaking ever. Well, the longer you're there, the more influence you accrue. The longer you're there, the more lobbyists you get to become friends with and in the back pockets of. And the more influence you have and the more senior you are, the more weight you pull and the more dealing and wheeling you do. So impose a term limit. I mean, why do we have a term limit for presidents? Because we don't want to end up in a dictatorship, right? So same for Congress. If you give them term limits, they won't have enough time to get so influential that they could create damage, hopefully. So it sticks to the voting, sticks to the truth, sticks to what it is. You get more and more people going through. So you're more and more likely, hopefully, to get better people. And, there's not enough incentive to do bad. All right. Now, the third one is, what if you bar public servants from lobbying for X number of years? This was another thing that I know President Trump introduced. So if you were a senator for 5 years post your Senate retirement, you cannot be on the board of advisors. You cannot join a lobbying group. You cannot come back and talk to your peers. 5 years, 3 years, whatever, the ban. See, the great thing about that is by the time you can do any of that, most of your contacts are kind of gone, especially if there's a term limit. So now if you want to be a public servant, you want to be a senator, you want to be a congressman or woman, you better do it for the heart. You better do it for the real purpose, and that is to serve your people. It's not going to be for how rich you get after you're done, which is, I don't know, a lot of people get very rich. A lot of politicians get stupid rich when they retire because of this, because of their influence. All right, so that's the argument if you want to say, hey, let's get rid of lobbying. I don't think we're going to get rid of lobbying. It's too strong of a group. So entrepreneurs, if that's the case, did you know that in 2018, lobbying spending, this is lobbyists spending on politicians, $3.42 billion. $3.4 billion with a B, billion dollars. This is what next part breaks my heart. Entrepreneurs, we don't have a lobbyist group. Well, we do now. But for so long, we didn't have a lobby. We didn't have anyone talking. This is why I said Lurn started. Lurn one, I want to be the voice. Lurn needs to be your voice out there in political realms, in every realm possible. Entrepreneurs, we drive economies. We drive change. We are the last line of defense, yet no one is listening to us because we aren't talking a united, cohesive language. So in July 24th, 2017, there was a new group that started. It's called crap, I didn't write the name down, but I just found it. I was just researching them. They're the American Entrepreneurs Association. I got the URL. It's called startupusa.org. Startupusa.org. They're a brand new lobbyist group for entrepreneurs in America. And this just launched in 2017. It's not even that long ago. Do you know their budget in 2017? Their annual budget. This is what they could spend. $1.7 million. $1.7 million. The total lobby spending right now is $3.42 billion with a B. Our group had 1.7 million with an M. And do you know that their biggest supporters? I wrote down some of the names. The biggest supporters that gave money to a group that is supposed to be lobbying for entrepreneurs: Visa, UPS, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs. How does that make any sense? These are not startups. I mean, look, I know that all of these companies want to be in front of entrepreneurs. Don't get me wrong. Listen, I'm very grateful to every big brand, big company that gave money to this. But listen, entrepreneurs, we are not going to get anywhere if we don't start to learn to stick together. Seriously, we got to start giving. Now, I have not done my research. Startupusa.org. I just recently found them. I have not spoken to them. I hope to have them on this podcast soon, someday. I've not done my research on them, but from what I read, the kinds of initiatives and projects they're working on, I liked it. It sounded promising. It's very much so about reviving the entrepreneurial spirit in this country, which drove us during the whole boom. The industrial boom, that's what made this country, and we've been going away from it, and big corporations are running everything, and it kind of breaks my heart to see those same big corporations are the ones funding the only lobbying group that's supposed to represent us. So guess what? They're going to have to drive the initiatives of their funders. Guys, we got lobbying going on within lobbying. Stop it. So I want everyone to go to startupusa.org, and I want you to research them, and I want you to see if they speak your language. I want you to see if they voice your voice, and then I want you to support them. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to look into them too, and I'm going to support them also. Otherwise, maybe we're not far away from Lurn actually one day starting a lobbying group, because we need to have a voice, and no one's listening to us. And unless we have a voice, we're going to keep getting run over. So entrepreneurs, it's time to come together, time to have a voice, whether we let startupusa.org do it for us or whether we create a new voice. I don't care what it is, but if there's $3.4 billion out there being spent on lobbying, we either shut it down or we join it and we get a huge budget of that, and we make sure that some of the things being passed by Congress help us start new companies, create new innovation, solve more problems, and drive the economy of the world. If we're the ones actually solving the problems, we should have a voice. And I think that we will very soon. So the whole point of today was to show you what's going on out there. Come on, entrepreneurs, stick together, stay united, have a voice. This is Anik Singal reminding you that if life pushes you, stand straight, smile, push it the heck back. Join us at lurn.com. Go to anikpodcast.com, please. All of our other episodes are there. Show notes from this episode are there. Of course, make sure you leave us a great review. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the thumbs up icon, hit the bell icon, and make sure at the bottom there, leave me a comment. I'll read them all. Tell everyone else about this amazing podcast, The Fighting Entrepreneur. We're coming up to episode 100 very soon. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you for all your support. This is Anik Singal signing off. Until next time, Fighting Entrepreneurs, go out there and fight for your dreams.
Thanks for listening to The Fighting Entrepreneur with your host, Anik Singal.